welcome. In this video, we're going to talk about exponent rules for multiplication. We are going to be doing pages 1, 2, and 3 of your Unit 9 notes. I think in this video, we'll just get pages 1 and 2, but let's take a look and see what we can do. So there are going to be 3 main rules for our exponent rules for multiplication: the product of powers property, the power of a power property, and the power of a product property. Lots of words here, but what does it all mean? The product of powers property says if I multiply powers with the same base, I add the exponent. And for me, one of the things that's really key is it's got to be the same base. So what would that look like with variables? Let's say I have x squared times x to the fifth. They have the same base, and I'm multiplying these powers. So this, if I'm to simplify, would equal x to 2 plus 5. You would add the powers, and the answer would be x to the 7th. So if I look at this problem down here with numbers, I have 7 to the 4th times 7 to the 5th. This is the same base of 7, so I need to add the 4 plus the 5. That equals 7 to the 9th, which is 40,353,607. And I would use a calculator to find that. Remember, powers, that's 7 times 7, 9. 7 times itself 9 times. Okay, next property is the power of a power property. If I want to find a power of a power, I multiply the exponents. So what would that look like if I were using variables? Let's say I have x to the 5th to the 3rd power. So that is a power of a power. This tells me that I multiply the exponent. So this equals x to the 5 times 3, which is x to the 15th. So in this case, I was multiplying the powers with the same base. In this case, it's a power to a power. And finally is the power of a product property. And that's if I want to find the power of a product, I'm going to find the power of each factor and then multiply. So I like to kind of think about it like distributing. And let's take a look at what that is going to look like. Let's say I have 4 to the x squared times y to the 3rd power. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to distribute this 3 into each factor. So I get 4 to the 3rd power, x to the 2 times 3, because this is a power of a power, so that's 6, and y, and this is y to the 1st, so 1 times 3, y to the 3rd. Now I'm going to evaluate this. 4 to the 3rd power is 4 times 4 times 4, which is 64. I cannot simplify x to the 3rd or y, x to the 6th or y to the 3rd more. So I get 64, x to the 6th, y to the 3rd. And really, sadly, I forgot our examples here. So let's do the examples of the power of a power. This is going to equal, because it's a power of a power, 3 to the 4 times 2, which is 3 to the 8th power. I'm going to put that into a calculator and get 6,561. In this case, I'm going to distribute and get 8 to the 3rd times 4 to the 3rd. 8 to the 3rd, 8 times 8 is 512, and 4 to the 3rd is 64, and that equals 32,768. So let's simplify, get some practice done. We've got our 3. If I have the same base, I'm going to add. If I have a power of a power, I'm going to add. And if I have a power into a bunch of different factors, I'm going to distribute that power, multiplying and evaluating. In this case right here, number 1, x to the 2nd power times x to the 3rd times x to the 5th. Same base multiplication. This is a product of powers property. So I will add, and this equals x to the 2 plus 3 plus 5, and 2 plus 3 is 5, plus 5 is x to the 10th. This next one is also same base and multiplying. I'm going to add these. So I will get y to the negative 3 plus 7 plus negative 2. Negative 3 plus 7 is 4. 4 plus negative 2 is 2. I get y to the second power, or y squared. Alrighty, this next one looks like a power of a power property. So I am going to just multiply, and I will have negative 3 to the 3 times 2, which equals negative 3 to the 6th power. If I'm to evaluate that, I will get 729. Okie dokie, let's look at number 4. Negative 2w to the 2nd power. Power of a product property. So I'm going to have negative 2 squared times w squared. I'm going to distribute that 2 in. Negative 2 times 2, negative 2 is 4w squared. And there's my answer there. I should have put that in parentheses to be clear that I was distributing it to the negative 2. Alrighty. In this case, I just want you to realize this is just negative 1 times 6x to the 4th y squared to the 3rd. So I'm going to leave that negative 1 for the end. I'm going to do my exponents. I'm going to distribute this. I have negative 1 times 6 cubed x to the 4 times 3, which is 12, y to the 2 times 3, which is 6. Now I want to evaluate, and I get negative 1 times 6 cubed, which is 216, x to the 12th, y to the 6th, and negative 1 times this product is simply negative 216. Negative 1 times 216 is negative 216, x to the 12th, y to the 6th. And that is this expression simplified. Now this one, I'm going to just pretend like this is just one whole thing. This is just a power of a power property. I'm simply going to distribute this here, and I have a plus 1 to the 3 times 4. I'm going to multiply those and get a plus 1 to the 12th. I cannot simplify this any further. Alrighty, so we've done page 1. Hopefully you're getting the hang of this. It does take some practice. Let's look at page 2. I'm going to go up here to number 7, and I've got a lot of multiplication here, right? I have this in parentheses, but I know this is just x to the 4th times y cubed. I just didn't put the multiplication symbol. This is a multiplication, so that's times x squared times y to the negative 1. It's all multiplication, so I dropped the parentheses. I can then rewrite these so my x's are together. I have x to the 4th times x squared times y cubed times y to the negative 1. I'm going to add these to get my final answer. X 4 plus 2, x to the 6th, and y 3 minus 1, which is y squared. And there is my answer for number 7, x to the 6th, y squared. In this case, remember, this is just a negative 1 times 4x squared. I'm going to distribute my squared first, which is negative 1 times 4 squared x squared. I'm then going to evaluate, and I get negative 1 times 16x squared. What's negative 1 times 16? Well, it's negative 16x squared. Alrighty, we've got 4 more, and these are really exciting because we're going to have all the things together. So, first thing I'm always going to do is I'm going to do the distributing. I'm going to use that third property, the power of a product property, if I can. So first thing I'm going to do to solve this is distribute in here. I get 4 cubed x to the 2 times 3, which is 6, and y to the 1 times 3, which is 3, times x to the 5th. The next step I want to do is evaluate, if I can. And I have 4 cubed, which is 64. And I'm going to just rewrite this x to the 6th, x to the 5th, times y cubed. And my last step is I'm going to add. So I get 64, x to the 6th, x to the 5th is x to the 6 plus 5, which is 11, y cubed. And now I am simplified. Okay, distribute, evaluate, add. This one I'm going to do the same. Let's start with distributing. This is another situation where I have this -1 outside. I'm not going to put the -1 this time. We've done that a couple times. Now you kind of knew what's going to happen. But I am going to distribute. I have -3 squared x squared. So that's x to the 4th, y 5 times 2, y to the 10th, z 3 times 2, z to the 6th. And that is going to be multiplied by 5 to the x to the 4th, y to the 6th, z. Now what I like to do is I like to rewrite all my numbers. And I'm going to write the -1 here because I'm going to rewrite all my numbers. This is all multiplication. I can drop the parentheses. So I have -1 times 3 squared, which is 9. I'm evaluating right now. Times 5 times x to the 4th times x to the 4th times y to the 10th times y to the 6th times z to the 6th times z. I'm still evaluating. -1 times 9 is -9. -9 times 5 is -45. X to the 4th times x to the 4th times y to the 10th times y to the 6th times z to the 6th times z. And now I'm going to add, get all my adding done here. I have -45. 4 plus 4 is 8. 10 plus 6 is 16. And 6 plus 1, there's an invisible 1 there, is 7. And that should be a z. Excuse me, z to the 7th. So all of that simplified to -5, x to the 8th, y to the 16th, z to the 7th power. Alrighty, I'm going to stop here. We will do the final 2 on page 2 and page 3 in the next video. Thanks for listening.